Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Ford, and we are here for part, I believe, 8 in a 25-ish part series as we take on Holly by Stephen King. We are taking this novel, for the most part, 2 chapters at a time. Now, in the first video in this series, there is a read-along schedule. There are 2 different videos, I believe, one of which will be 1 chapter, one of which will be 3 chapters. But that's just sort of how the pacing of the novel worked its way out with the page counts. So we have here a So What Happened portion, a Lit Crit portion, and a Writer's Corner portion. Probably you already knew that, because if you're on episode 8 of this series, it's difficult to imagine you got through the first 7 without sort of putting those things together. Now, if you like or appreciate the type of thing that I do here on the channel, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more literary goodness. Now, what happened in this chapter? Well, we find ourselves with Im and Roddy as the winter weather has relented, and Roddy has set out to clean the salt from under the cars. He accidentally hits the button that opens both garage doors and curses the fact, because it's not that he's getting senile, it's that it's just poor engineering. It's terrible design that makes that button so easy to press versus the correct button. So both of those doors go up, exposing the van. You know, like all serial killers have, the van. Before he can put the doors down, he's approached by a young woman. She tells him to be sure to wash off the van because her father had one just like it. And he didn't wash the salt off the bottom, and the dang thing rusted right through the muffler, which fell out on the highway. Yada, yada, yada. She wants to talk to Im, by the way. Turns out her name is Barbara Robinson, someone we know. Cut to Holly waiting for the cleaning crew to leave so she can go into her mother's house. They do, and eventually she will. Neighbors and the lawyer show up, and they all go in. It turns out Holly's mom, in addition to being a millionaire, was also something of a jewelry fanatic. We don't know where the money came from. We don't know why she has the money. Now she's got millions of dollars. Now she's got all sorts of jewelry. I'm assuming you're going to want to check her drawers for an EP. Probably she dropped something hot. Now, where am I? I lost myself. It turns out Mom also had some jewelry. Hooray! Probably $100,000 worth of jewelry. Holly spends some time in her mother's mock-up Holly's room. And she collects a bunch of pills to dispose of, and then throws some Precious Moments dolls into a fireplace. Now, what are we doing here? Not much. This novel sucks. Now, on page 137, we get this quote. Bill got sick, Holly murmurs, lighting a fresh cigarette. Pancreatic. It still hurts to think of that, even 5 years later. There was another will, and Holly discovered Bill had left her the company. Finders keepers. It hadn't been much, not then. Nascent, struggling to get on its feet. I think I figured out part of why I don't like Holly. Holly is too Gen Z for me. So, doesn't do any of the work, expects to have everything handed to her, inherits a bunch of stuff, and just has it. There's nothing likable about Holly, at least to my reading. There is nothing ingenious, hardworking, endearing to Holly, not to my reading. So imagine if you are a fan of Holly the character, Imagine yourself finding Holly for the first time in this novel. Do you think she would be likable if this were your first time meeting her? Um, I'm not so sure she would. She's inherited a business. She's inherited $200,000 of jewelry. She's inherited $9 million or whatever it was. She has been absolutely incorrigible. She has been snotty this entire novel. She has been sort of a worrywart this entire novel. And then we get yeah, we have this quote from Holly as well. Remember, she's just inherited millions of dollars. She's just found out she's got hundreds of thousands of dollars of jewelry as well. She's got a house. She inherited a house. Who in today's world can afford a house? This is on page 142. At some point following her mother's inheritance, and probably after the money had supposedly been lost, Charlotte became a secret hoarder, like a cave-bound goblin in a fantasy story. That's your mother, Holly. That's your mother who just made you a millionaire, Holly. That's your mother who gave you all sorts of jewelry now, Holly. That's your mother who has just gifted you a house, Holly. That's your mother who has an entire bedroom in her house dedicated to you as if you had never left it, Holly. This is someone who obviously loves you, Holly. And so there's a lot made out in this chapter about, oh, my mother, she always said these little things to me that you shouldn't go to school. What if you waste your money? You'll flunk out. That's what mothers do. That's what mothers do. This is not. I think Stephen King is trying to paint this out to be some type of abusive relationship, some type of corrosive relationship with the mother character. That's moms. That's what moms do. Moms are supposed to tamp you down, to lower your expectations. I think it's just. Anyway, Holly's just very unlikable. Just super, super unlikable. But if we're talking about the literary stuff, we're here with the lit crit portion of this thing. On page 138, we get this. Oh, that's 137. Her mother had more or less replicated Holly's childhood room, like a museum exhibit, Holly thinks. Now, it's sort of weird, it's sort of creepy. Again, it's a mother thing. That's what mothers do. Here's the thing that's interesting about it. We have this type of scenario happening once more in this novel. Pardon me. Stinky Steinman's mom has left his room like a museum. Now, I think so far this is too early to really draw any parallels. But we did see in Stinky Steinman's absence his mother turn into an absolute wreck. Are we then left to assume that Holly's mother turned into an absolute wreck in her absence as well? Maybe. But I think there's going to be some other so long as this is a parallel. So long as this was consciously done by Stephen King, I don't think we are far enough into the novel to really make that assertion yet. I think that probably there will be a deeper relationship between, as opposed to the mothers, this will probably be some parallel between Stinky Steinman and Holly, even if that parallel is just so much as to say, foreshadow that Holly will be in peril, like Stinky Steinman was. Now, ultimately, even if the larger parallel is between Holly and Stinky, The real meat of the matter, the real crux of things from a literary standpoint, would be the parallels between the mothers, because I think that is what we are setting up with the sit down, drag out cry fest that Holly has in this chapter. The waltz down memory lane, I think, is the sort of thing that is setting up for that parallel to be had. So that's all I really have for the lit crit portion of this. What can we learn as a writer from this chapter? Well, me. I've got one for you. Page 142. One of the things that I am absolutely convinced of in my life is that if you step onto a college campus, a great deal of the English professors thereon will be in utter disgust of Ernest Hemingway. We don't read him in this class. We don't read him in this program. Ernest Hemingway, You're going to find that if you step onto a college campus and quiz the English professors thereon. I am convinced that the reason for this is the utter confidence of Ernest Hemingway's prose. Ernest Hemingway did not mince words. I'll just grab a random Ernest Hemingway book. To Have and Have Not. I'm just going to flip it to a random page. This is all... Here we go. Nope, that's all dialogue. It's all dialogue. Harry pressed the self-starters and started the two engines. He'd put a second engine in her when he went back to running liquor, when the Depression had put charter boat fishing on the bum. He got the hatchet and with his left hand chopped the anchor rope through against the bit. It'll sink and they'll grapple it when they pick up the load, he thought. I'll run her up the garrison bight, and if they're going to take her, they'll take her. I got to get a doctor. So all of that is very sure. Our narrator, our speaker, our writer, very sure about what's going on. English professors, the gatekeepers, much more mealy-mouthed than that. Stephen King certainly seems to feel as if he has ascended to the ranks of literati, as if he has ascended the intelligentsia. And so, completely unsure of anything, we start to get sentences like this. Quote, he sounds a bit uncomfortable, but really not very. Literature. English literature. He sounds a bit uncomfortable, but really not very. He sounds a bit uncomfortable, but really not very. I want to know how you read that and make it sound good. I want to know how you read that and make it sound like anything was actually said in that sentence. He sounds angry, but really not very. He sounds apoplectic, but really not very. Why put that on paper? Why waste the ink? Why waste the space? Why waste my time as a reader saying he sounds something, but really not very? He sounds a bit something, but Really? Not very. What a terrible, masturbatory sentence. What a miserable. You've made my hair go all wild, Stephen, with this absolutely worthless set of words on paper. He sounds a bit uncomfortable, but really not very. Tell me what that sentence means. It means I felt something when observing him, but it turns out he might not be feeling the thing that I thought he was feeling. What a worthless sentence. What a terrible, miserable, no good, very bad piece of writing. Okay, so now I have one more question. So there was in these pair of chapters, there was the bit about the Barbara finding Em and Roddy and their van. Okay, we get it. Every serial killer story that you've ever heard has one of those slip-ups. Then, in the second chapter, Holly gets some jewelry. There's supposed to be a great big emotional payoff with Holly crying on the bed. I'm not sure that we got there. Maybe for some of us we did. Maybe if you've followed Holly for several novels, that piece of writing was good stuff. I will say that on the larger scale, it feels as if we are a bit out of steam. Now, like I said last episode, I think this was last episode, many novels right around this area in the novel, the end-ish of the first third-ish of the novel, hit this low point where it feels like the writer just isn't really sure where we're going, but we gotta keep the story going bit by bit, and as we find it, then we can sort of transcend. We can kick off that middle part of the novel. To me, it feels like the steam has gone out in this thing, but that might be because I'm approaching it so negatively. Is this the doldrums of the novel, or are we out of steam? That is all I have for this episode. If you like or appreciate what I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance, but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more, because there is poetry every Monday on the channel. There are short stories and novel read-alongs as well, and I hope to have you back for the next one.